Well, this Sunday marks 1 year since a massive earthquake sent an unstoppable tsunami barrelling into the east coast of Japan. About 19,000 people died in the terrible waves and dozens of communities were all but wiped off the map. The tsunami also triggered the world's worst nuclear crisis in a quarter of a century, with 3 reactors at Fukushima melting down and spreading radioactive fallout across thousands of square kilometres. The ABC's North Asia correspondent Mark Willacy has spent the past 12 months covering this extraordinary story. He's just returned from a journey along Japan's once scenic Route 45, which cuts through many coastal communities devastated by the tsunami. He begins the first of 2 special late-line reports in the port city of Kensennuma.
It sits 800 metres inland. A haunting reminder of the indiscriminate power of the earthquake and the terrifying waves it gave rise to. Swept ashore by the tsunami, this 330-tonne fishing trawler smashed homes, crushed cars and destroyed lives. And it will stay right here where it was dumped by the waves if the Kensennuma government gets its way.
Yes, this boat provokes painful memories for the people here. But in 10, 20, 30 years' time, it will still be important to hand down the story of the tsunami. We want to keep this boat as both a memorial to the victims and a reminder of the danger of tsunamis.
In Kensennuma, anything that wasn't obliterated by water was consumed by fire. So to some, the very thought that the city would like to keep this 60-metre-long Leviathan where it now sits is obscene.
I don't like it. Whenever I look at this ship, I remember the tsunami. I saw this ship crush most of the houses that were once here. It was terrible.
Leaving Kensennuma, I travel north along Route 45 to one of the worst-hit communities, Rikuzen-Takeda, where more than 2,000 died and hundreds remain missing. Well, I've just turned off Route 45 into the frozen hills above the town of Rikuzen-Takeda. I've come to meet a man who's known as the guardian of the lost souls, the keeper of the remains of those who still have not been identified 12 months after the disaster. The Fumon Buddhist temple is more than 500 years old and is one of Japan's cultural treasures. Koyo Kumagai is the 30th man to serve as its chief monk. Today, as he chants a sutra for the dead, the only members of his congregation are me and 33 wooden boxes. Each contains the remains of someone who still hasn't been identified.
Right after the tsunami, there were the remains of 360 people here, but most were identified and returned to their families.
In Japanese culture, it's very important to be able to cremate the remains of a loved one. So monk Kumagai will continue to preside over the remains in these 33 boxes until the victims are identified.
I'll never forget the time when one little girl came to collect the remains of her father, and she embraced the box and said, "Daddy." That was genuine love. It makes me more determined to watch over the remains of the unknown.
I leave Rikuzen-Takeda and its dead to travel further north to a town which is struggling to cope with the living. Towering over Kamaishi is its famous goddess of mercy, who watches over the safety of the town's fishermen. But many of those who relied on the sea for work are now unemployed because of it. Like dozens of communities along Route 45, thousands of people in Kamaishi lost their jobs when their factories, shops and restaurants were washed away by the giant waves. The unemployed survivors now congregate here at the town's job centre. Erika Koike used to work at a seafood processing plant, but it was swallowed by the tsunami. She struggled to find a job since, despite learning new computer skills.
Before I started learning how to use a computer, I was very pessimistic. I was also mentally damaged because my home where I was born and raised was washed away. But since going back to school, I started to feel more positive.
This was where Erika Koike once worked. This factory was torn apart by the waves, while the foundations were sunk by the earthquake. The March 11 disaster has seen more than 120,000 people join the jobless queue. It's also seen thousands more young people desert their communities in the search for work.
At the employment centre today, it was mainly older people. I read in the newspapers that more and more young people are leaving to find jobs. It worries me.
Kamaishi was once recognised as having the world's deepest breakwater. But not even that could stop the tsunami destroying almost everything in its path. A year on from that terrible March day, the wounds are still very raw, all up and down this coastline. Mark Willacy, Lateline.